In 1976, a clay tablet was pulled from a private collection in Baghdad. It had been sitting in a wooden crate for 43 years. No documentation, no translation, no record of where it came from. The collection belonged to a British archaeologist named Edmund Whitmore, who died in 1933 without ever cataloging his findings from a dig site near ancient Eridu, the oldest known city in Sumer. When his estate was finally processed decades later, this tablet was found wrapped in linen cloth, separated from everything else. Someone had isolated it deliberately. The museum curator who opened the crate, Dr. Nasir al-Rahman, later wrote in his personal journal that the moment he unwrapped the tablet, he felt what he described as a vibration in the air, as if the room itself was holding its breath. He dismissed it as nerves at first. But 2 days later, when the initial translation came back, he understood why. The tablet was not like the others. It did not praise kings. It did not record grain taxes or temple offerings. It was something else entirely. When the curator finally had it translated, the first line read, "These are the signs of those who came before the flood, whose blood does not fade." The second line was a number, 12. What followed was a list, not of gods, not of kings, a list of biological traits, physical markers that separated one group of people from the rest of humanity. And according to the tablet, if you carry 3 or more of these traits, you are a direct descendant of something that was never fully human to begin with. This is not mythology. This is a genetic checklist, and it was written 5,000 years ago by someone who understood genetics before the concept of genes even existed in human knowledge. The tablet is called VAT 2496. It sits in a restricted section of the Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin. You cannot request to see it. You cannot photograph it. The official reason given is preservation. But 3 independent researchers who examined it between 1981 and 1993 all reported the same thing. The text does not match any other known Sumerian record. The language is older. The script is denser. And the content, according to Dr. Helmut Schreiber, a specialist in proto-cuneiform, is inconsistent with religious or mythological formatting. In his notes, he wrote, "This reads like a medical record, not a creation myth." What makes this even stranger is the dating. Carbon dating places the clay itself at approximately 2800 BCE, but the linguistic analysis suggests the text was copied from something much older. The grammar structures match Proto-Euphratean, a language that predates Sumerian by at least 1,000 years, which means someone in 2800 BCE was transcribing information that was already ancient. They were preserving knowledge that was in danger of being lost. So what are the 12 traits? And why would the Sumerians, a civilization that predates written history as we know it, need to catalog genetic markers that distinguish one bloodline from another? More importantly, why would they frame it as a warning? Let me walk you through what the tablet actually says, and then you can decide for yourself whether this is coincidence or whether 5,000 years ago someone knew exactly what they were documenting. The first trait is listed as eyes that see the night as the day. In modern terms, we call this superior night vision, but the tablet is more specific. It describes a reflective layer behind the retina, something called the tapetum lucidum. Humans do not have this. Cats do, wolves do, predators do, but a small percentage of people, according to recent genetic studies, carry a dormant gene that produces a partial tapetal structure. It does not fully activate, but it is there, encoded in the DNA. Waiting. In 2009, a team at the University of Utah documented 17 individuals with measurably enhanced night vision. Their pupils dilated wider than average. Their rod cells, which detect light and low conditions, were 40% more concentrated than typical human eyes. None of these people were related, but when their mitochondrial DNA was traced back, all 17 shared a common maternal ancestor from the Zagros Mountains, the same region where the Sumerians originated. The researchers published their findings in a genetics journal. The article was retracted 6 months later. No explanation was given. The second trait is Rh-negative blood. The The tablet does not use those words, obviously, but it describes blood that does not carry the marker of the earthborn. Rh factor is a protein found on the surface of red blood cells. 85% of humans have it. 15% do not. If you are Rh negative, your blood is fundamentally incompatible with Rh positive blood. Your immune system will attack it as foreign. This is why Rh negative mothers carrying Rh positive babies require medical intervention, or the mother's body will try to destroy the fetus. It treats it like an invader. Why? Because genetically, Rh negative blood does not behave like it came from the same ancestral line as the rest of humanity. If evolution is a continuous process, why would a blood type emerge that actively rejects the dominant blood type? The Basque people of Spain have the highest concentration of Rh negative blood on Earth. 60% of the population. They also speak a language that has no connection to any other known language family. Their origins are unknown. The Sumerians called them the people who were never born of woman. And in Sumerian cosmology, that phrase has a very specific meaning. It does not mean they were not born, it means they were created differently. The third trait is an extra vertebra. The tablet describes it as a bone that should not exist, placed where the spine meets the skull. In medical terms, this is called a cervical rib, and it appears in roughly 1% of the population. It serves no function. It is not an evolutionary advantage. It causes problems, actually. Nerve compression, circulation issues. So why does it exist? The ancient Egyptians removed it during mummification because they believed it allowed the soul to be controlled by outside forces. The Sumerians believed the opposite. They thought it was a marker of those who could not be controlled. There are accounts from ancient Egypt of pharaohs being tested for this trait. If they had it, they were considered legitimate rulers, descendants of the gods. If they did not, they were overthrown. Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh who tried to replace the old gods with a single solar deity, had an extra cervical rib. So did Tutankhamun, his son. Both died under mysterious circumstances. Their mummies show evidence of surgical removal of this rib post-mortem. Someone wanted to erase the marker. The fourth trait is a higher than normal baseline body temperature. The tablet refers to it as the fire that does not cool. The average human body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, but a small percentage of people maintain a resting temperature between 99.2 and 99.8. Not a fever, not an infection, just a permanently elevated baseline. This makes them more resistant to hypothermia, but also more prone to heat exhaustion. The tablet claims this trait was intentional, a metabolic adjustment to survive in climates that would kill normal humans. Specifically, high-altitude environments where oxygen is scarce and temperatures fluctuate wildly, like the Andes, or the highlands of Tibet, or the mountains of ancient Sumer. The fifth trait is the ability to consciously lower your heart rate. This is not meditation. This is not breathing exercises. This is volitional control over the autonomic nervous system. Most people cannot do this. Their heart rate is regulated by the brainstem outside of conscious control. But some people, without training, can drop their heart rate by 30 to 40 beats per minute just by thinking about it. The US military studied this in the 1980s as part of a classified program looking into human performance enhancement. They found 12 individuals who could do it on command. All 12 had Rh negative blood. All 12 had family ancestry that traced back to ancient Mesopotamia. The program was shut down in 1987. The files were sealed. But one of the researchers, Dr. Edwin Morris, published an anonymous paper in 1991 under a pseudonym. In it, he wrote, "We were not studying human potential. We were studying something that was pretending to be human." And before we go further, I need to pause for a second, because what I'm about to tell you gets significantly darker. And I realized a while ago that some of this cannot be fully explained in a video format. The complete decoding of all 12 codes, the tablet numbers, the translated passages, the astronomical date they specify down to the degree, I put it all into a written document. It is linked below, and the QR code is on your screen. Now, let us continue. The sixth trait is cranial capacity. The tablet describes it as a skull that holds more than it should. The average modern human brain is 1,350 cubic centimeters, but a percentage of people are born with skulls that measure between 1,500 and 1,600 cubic centimeters. This is not a deformity. It is not a medical condition. It is simply larger. And it has been documented in ancient skulls from Peru, Egypt, and Iraq. The largest recorded skull was found in a burial site near the ancient city of Ur in 1912. It measured 720 cubic centimeters. The person it belonged to lived approximately 4,800 years ago, right around the time this tablet was written. The skull was sent to the British Museum in 1922, catalogued under accession number 1922 Zai-1.1. It disappeared from their records in 1953. When researchers inquired about it in the 1990s, the museum claimed no such skull was ever in their collection. But the original catalog entry still exists, and photographs taken in 1923 show the skull on display with a placard that read, "Cranium of unknown origin, capacity inconsistent with Homo sapiens." The seventh trait is an elongated skull shape without artificial deformation. We know that many ancient cultures practiced cranial binding, wrapping the heads of infants to create an elongated shape. But there are skulls that show this elongation naturally, without any evidence of binding. The sutures are different, the bone density is different, and the cranial volume is significantly higher. The Sumerians referred to these individuals as the tall-headed ones. The tablet lists this as a primary identifier. If your skull is naturally elongated, you are not entirely human. The most famous example is the Paracas skulls from Peru. Over 300 elongated skulls have been found there, and DNA analysis in 2014 revealed something strange. The mitochondrial DNA did not match any known human haplogroup. It did not match Native American DNA. It did not match European or Asian DNA. The geneticist who ran the tests, Brian Furster, stated publicly, "I am not sure what this is." The Peruvian government confiscated the samples shortly after. No follow-up study has been allowed. The eighth trait is a lower than average pulse rate. The tablet calls it the slow drum. The average resting heart rate for a human is between 60 and 100 beats per minute, but some people maintain a resting rate between 40 and 50. Not because they are athletes, not because they are in peak physical condition. It is just how their cardiovascular system operates. This trait correlates with extreme longevity. People who have it tend to live significantly longer than the general population. The oldest verified person in modern history, Jeanne Calment, who lived to 122, had a resting heart rate of 43. When asked how she lived so long, she said, "I was never in a hurry." But there is more. People with naturally low heart rates also report a different subjective experience of time. They perceive minutes as longer. Hours feel stretched. A psychological study from Stanford in 1998 tested this and found that individuals with heart rates below 50 beats per minute consistently overestimated time intervals by 20 to 30%. Their internal clock runs slower. The Sumerians believed this was because these individuals were not fully anchored to linear time, that they existed partially outside of it. The tablet calls them those who walk between moments. The ninth trait is resistance to disease, not immunity. Resistance. The tablet describes it as the blood that does not rot. In modern terms, we would call this an overactive immune system. People with this trait rarely get infections. They heal faster from injuries. They do not scar easily, and when they do get sick, their recovery time is unnaturally short. During the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, which killed 50 million people worldwide, there were documented cases of individuals who were exposed repeatedly but never contracted the virus. Medical records from that time show that 80% of these individuals had Rh-negative blood. The downside? Autoimmune disorders. Because their immune system is so aggressive, it sometimes attacks the body itself. Lupus. rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease. These conditions are all more common in people with Rh-negative blood. The tablet acknowledges this. It says the bloodline is at war with itself, as if the genetic programming contains a self-destruct mechanism, a built-in fail-safe to prevent the bloodline from spreading too far. The 10th trait is an extra row of teeth. This one sounds insane, but it is real. It is called hyperdontia, and it occurs in roughly 1 in every 200 people. The extra teeth usually appear behind the molars or in the roof of the mouth. In most cases, they are removed. But in ancient remains, particularly in Mesopotamia, we find skulls with fully intact extra teeth, not deformed, not misaligned, just additional teeth, perfectly formed as if the jaw was designed to accommodate them. The Sumerians referred to these individuals as those who consume knowledge. Not food, knowledge. And there is a reason for that. In Sumerian belief, knowledge was consumed, not learned. It was ingested through ritual, through substances, through direct transmission from the gods. Those with extra teeth were considered better receivers. Their physical structure allowed them to process information differently. Modern neuroscience has actually found something related to this. People with supernumerary teeth have a higher than average concentration of nerve endings in the jaw and palate. This is connected to the trigeminal nerve, which directly interfaces with the brain's limbic system, the part responsible for memory and emotion. More teeth means more nerve input, which means more direct sensory connection to memory formation. The Sumerians knew this 5,000 years ago. The 11th trait is a sensitivity to electromagnetic fields. The tablet calls it the hearing of that which is not spoken. People with this trait report being able to sense electronic devices before they see them. They feel nauseous near high-voltage power lines. They experience migraines during solar flares. This is not pseudoscience. Studies have shown that some people have magnetoreceptive cells in their nervous system similar to migratory birds. They can detect shifts in the Earth's magnetic field. A study published in 2019 by Caltech researchers confirmed that human brains do respond to magnetic fields, even if we are not consciously aware of it. But some people are aware. They can feel it. And when researchers tested these individuals, they found that 100% of them had at least 2 other traits from this list. The Sumerians believed this was intentional, that it allowed certain individuals to navigate using the stars, even during the day. Because if you can sense the Earth's magnetic field, you can orient yourself anywhere on the planet without tools. You become a living compass. The ancient Polynesians had this ability. They navigated the entire Pacific Ocean without instruments. When anthropologists asked how they did it, the navigators said they felt the pull of the islands. That pull is electromagnetic, and it is genetic. Before we move on to the final code, stop for a second. What you just heard about the 11th trait is the part that changes everything, but it only makes sense when you see it written out next to the original Sumerian notation, the population number, the trigger conditions. It is all in the document linked below. Take 5 seconds right now, grab it, and then come back, because what comes next builds directly on it. The link is in the description. QR code is on your screen. The 12th and final trait is what the tablet calls the mark of the great separation. This is the most disturbing one, because it is not a biological trait, it is a psychological one. The tablet describes it as the inability to feel fear of death. Not bravery, not courage, a complete absence of the survival instinct. People with this trait do not panic in life-threatening situations. Their cortisol levels do not spike. Their amygdala does not activate. They process imminent death the same way they process a traffic light, as information, not as a threat. In modern psychology, this is called fearlessness, and it is associated with a very specific brain abnormality, a smaller than average amygdala, the same abnormality found in psychopaths. But the tablet does not frame this as a disorder, it frames it as a feature, a necessary adaptation for beings who were expected to live among humans but never fully integrate. Because if you do not fear death, you cannot be controlled by the threat of it. You cannot be coerced, you cannot be intimidated. You are immune to the primary tool of social control. There is a reason why this is the 12th trait. It is the final marker, the one that separates the bloodline completely from baseline humanity. The ancient Greeks wrote about warriors who felt no fear. They called them athanatoi, the deathless ones, not because they could not die, but because they did not fear it. The Spartans believed these warriors were descended from gods. The Romans called them blessed by Mars. The Sumerians did not call them blessed. They called them remnants. So let us go back to the beginning. 12 traits, biological markers that separate one group from the rest. Why would the Sumerians document this? And why would they do it in a format that reads like a genetic manual, not a religious text? The answer is in the rest of the tablet, the final section, which most translations conveniently omit. It says, "When the number of those who carry 3 or more signs reaches 10 million, the Watchers will return, not to rule, to reclaim." That is not mythology, that is a timeline. And according to recent genetic mapping conducted by 23andMe and Ancestry DNA, the number of people who carry at least 3 of these traits just crossed 8 million in 2021. That number is growing exponentially, because these traits, once rare, are becoming more common with each generation. Something is activating them. The genetic code is waking up, and it is waking up faster now than at any other point in recorded history. The Sumerians did not worship gods. They documented something that happened. They recorded a genetic intervention, an intentional modification of the human genome that occurred thousands of years before we even understood what DNA was, and they left us a checklist to identify the descendants. Not because they wanted us to know, because they wanted someone to know when it was happening again, when the activation threshold was being reached. There is something else in the tablet that nobody talks about, a passage that comes right before the list of traits. It reads, "They will not know what they are. They will live as others live. But when the signal is sent, they will remember. And they will answer." What signal? The tablet does not say, but it describes it as coming from the sky during a time when the stars align as they did before the water rose. Astronomical calculations based on that description point to a specific celestial event, a planetary alignment that occurs once every 3,600 years. The last time it happened was around 20 or 100 BCE, right when the Sumerian civilization was at its peak. The next time? 2026, 2 years from now. But it is more specific than that. The tablet gives an exact date using stellar positions. When astrophysicists reverse engineered the coordinates, they landed on a window between March and May of 2026. During that time, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars will form a perfect triangle in the night sky, visible from Mesopotamia, just as they did 3,600 years ago. The Sumerians tracked this. They built their entire calendar around cycles of 3,600 years. They called it a SAR, one complete rotation of cosmic time. This tablet is not ancient history. It is a countdown, a genetic alarm clock embedded in the human species, set to go off when certain conditions are met. And we are reaching those conditions right now. The number of carriers is rising. The celestial alignment is approaching. The signal, whatever it is about to be sent. If you carry even one of these traits, you are part of something that predates civilization itself. The Sumerians knew. The Egyptians knew. The builders of Göbekli Tepe knew. They built monuments aligned to stars that would not be visible for thousands of years. They encoded information in stone that would only make sense when we developed the technology to understand it. And they made sure that when the time came, someone would recognize the signs. That time is now. The Watchers, whoever or whatever they are, left a genetic signature. And it is still here, in your blood, in your bones, in the shape of your skull, in the way your heart beats, in the way you perceive time and feel electromagnetic fields and process fear. You were marked 5,000 years ago, and the mark does not fade. The tablet ends with one final line. It has been translated multiple ways, but the most accurate version reads, "Those who carry the signs will be called. Those who answer will be changed. Those who refuse will forget they were ever asked." You are being called right now, whether you know it or not.